After 6 years of Civic hatchbacks, I finally bought myself a CRX. I was able to find a really well cared for example, and due to a little bit of external damage here and there, I was able to pick it up for much cheaper than these would normally go for. So let's get it into the garage and I'll show you around a little bit, talk about my plans, and show you some of the damage. So I have it in the garage here, and just kind of looking at the exterior, I mean there's a few things here. The fender is kind of dented up from, looks like there's some kind of collision here on the bumper, so they tried to fix it with Gorilla Tape, real classy. So they did provide the new bumper cover and another fender. So I have to decide, what do I want to do? I think this fender isn't too bad. Little scratch here, and then that dent, but otherwise I think the fender is okay. So maybe I just replace the bumper, and at that point I don't know if I try to paint it yellow along the top and down here, or if I just leave it primered black. I'm not exactly sure what I'll do with that. So it looks like somewhere along the line they backed into some kind of pillar, probably in a parking lot. So it's got a dent in the beam that goes across, and then the plastic bumper is bent in, and you can tell the bumper has been bent because it pulled away from the tabs over here. So at some point I'm just going to have to find a new bumper to go back here. Probably look through junkyards. The difficulty is it only works for the 88 and the 89. So I'm going to have to just kind of scour Craigslist or whatever until I can find an 88 or 89 bumper. So this fender is okay. No damage on this side. In the front, it's got a little bit of clear coat peeling. But what's weird about this one, so it was actually originally the silver color, the gold, or not gold, sorry, the gray silver. And for whatever reason, they voluntarily just chose to paint it yellow. That was the original owner back in California, I guess, painted it yellow, or so the story goes. So you can kind of see in a couple areas a little bit of rust along here, along the pillar, but you can see the original silver underneath. And then if I come around at the back, I don't know, I guess I'm not really good at looking at cars, but there's this dent along here. So I actually really don't know how they got that dent in there, but try to just pull that out, I guess. It's not too important really. And then there's just a little bit of the really common rust along the rear quarter panel. So at some point I'm just going to see maybe what I can do about that rust. But what really impressed me about this car is just how clean the interior is. So the door panels are really clean. There's none of the characteristic rot that you see with Civics along this panel just from sitting in the sun over time. So I was really surprised by that. And then the other side too, that's typically where it gets bad, is the driver's side, where the driver rests their arm. But that side's completely intact as well. Dashboard's really nice, no cracks or anything, so I was really just impressed with how clean this interior is. It's been very well taken care of. That's the other nice thing too. So these welds along here fail pretty commonly with Civics and CRXs, but this one's actually intact still, so the door doesn't make that clunking noise that a lot of them do. And then the carpet is pretty clean. This floor mat's kind of worn out, but underneath there's a whole other floor mat. Look at that. So underneath you have two floor mats. Check that out. And then going a little bit deeper, underneath that you have the original carpet, which is in really good condition. So that was kind of what impressed me about this car, is just how nice the interior is. You can see that seat over there is in really good condition. The driver's seat has tearing along the bolster. That's pretty common just from getting in and out, but it's not too big of a deal. But the downside to this engine is that it's been sitting for 3 years. So really, ideally, I would have wanted to change the oil there on the spot. before driving it home, but it was kind of too late. They'd already turned on the car, drove it to a barn somewhere, or somebody's house actually, and then they drove it around for a little bit. So it was kind of a little bit too late for that, but I drove it home and I'm changing the oil now. So I just want to get fresh oil in there, replace the oil that's been sitting for 3 years and kind of wore out. But then the engine bay is completely stock, so original intake, which is a nice touch. This one actually has air conditioning, of all things, so I'm not really used to that option. So mostly clean, but I can see there's a little bit of oil along here. And then actually I noticed when looking from underneath while changing the oil, there's something up here. It looks like this fuel injector probably. Go underneath and look how things are doing down there. So a lot of debris underneath here. So cobwebs, leaves, just random plant parts and pieces. So it's been sitting out in a yard for 3 years. I'm going to try to clean up some of this stuff just so it's not dragging along. But the CV axle on this side looks to be in pretty good shape. So the boots on both sides are intact. Coming around here, the bushings look to be pretty good. Ball joint is good there. See, upper control arm, ball joint, that one looks good as well. Some kind of leak there on the shifting collar thingamajig. I'm not exactly sure where that leak's coming from. But the transmission looks really clean, so I don't think there's any leaks above the transmission. And then the oil pan, and the oil pan as well, looks to be pretty clean. I'm seeing maybe a little bit of oil there along the oil pan gasket, but overall really not too bad. Looks like maybe on the air conditioning compressor there's some buildup there, so I see it now. So the seal there looks like maybe it failed on the crankshaft. I almost wonder if the air conditioning compressor is leaking oil, because I can see some around that hub. So here's the passenger side CV. Both boots look pretty good. Bushings look good here as well, which is nice. These bushings wear out over time. So usually when you buy one of these, the bushings are going to be pretty worn out and rotted away. And it kind of leads to the steering being a little bit sloppy. But these look to be like they're in pretty decent shape. At least they're not rotted out and cracking. And then just kind of staring at the rest of the car. The exhaust looks to be relatively decent shape. I mean, at least there's no obvious rusting along the assembly here. But what I have to see, I've got to do emissions testing. So I'm going to see if this guy is going to pass.
Because of clean air, you in Colorado gets measured like this, and that, and this, and this.
So I'm just cleaning up in the engine bay a little bit, and somehow a bird managed to crap on the air intake. And when you look at this thing, even if the hood was open, I mean, just I actually don't know how that was pulled off. So that's I'm not even really mad. That's just amazing. I'm just checking it out up here. Spark plug wires look pretty good. I mean, really just kind of looking at this thing, it looks to be in pretty good shape up top. I mean, you see a little bit there, a little bit coming out right there. But I think the valve cover gasket at least seems to be sealing. The cylinder head looks to be really clean. So nothing to worry about there. So the question is, when I already have a garage full of Civics, why buy a CRX? Well, besides the CRX being on my bucket list for a while now, I learned a couple of things from Nationals. And what I learned is that the CRX is about 100 pounds lighter than the Civic, and the CRX also has a shorter wheelbase. Between those two things, that makes the CRX the winning combination for autocross and specifically the STS class. So my plan is the CRX is going to become the new autocross car, and I figure that autocross duty is going to be the best way to preserve the interior and save it from the burden of being a daily driver. So let me know what you think about the CRX and my plans for it. What you think about the color. I was thinking about calling it maybe Banana Nut Muffin. So let me know what you think. Maybe I should paint it. I was thinking if I were to paint it, I would go with white or black, maybe. So just leave a comment below on what you think, and I hope to catch you next time.
See you again.